There's a train a-coming. You don't need no baggage, you just get on board. All you need is faith to it be so's a humming. You don't need no ticket, you just thank the Lord, yeah, yeah.
All right. Hey, welcome to New South Christians. I'm your host here, David Fuquay, and I've got a young man from Chicago. Talk about invasion from the north. A young man named Dylan Tudor.
Yes,
got
sir.
that right?
Yeah.
There you go. Well, anyway, he's a young man here at Vol State. He's volunteered to go on. This is episode 4. He's also the first male to occupy the seat across from me, so we're looking forward to talking. I'll let him just introduce himself real quick. We'll go ahead and get started. Go for it, Dylan.
Like you said, I'm Dylan Tudor. I'm from the western suburbs of Chicago. Originally grew up in Glen Ellen for 18 years of my life, and then moved down to Hendersonville, Tennessee, and it's going pretty good so far, so I like it.
Yeah, down here living the dream, huh?
Yes, sir.
Okay.
Southern hospitality.
Well, I've talked to him a little bit before we started, so I'll just go ahead and get in. I think he's got to hit the road here with his brother in a little bit and get something to eat for our next class. But I don't know, being the first male, I expect there's going to be some differences, et cetera. So you seem like a real straightforward shooter.
Thank
so
you. Yeah.
We're just looking for you to share. So I'll just go ahead and we'll talk about the church and the spiritual side.
All right.
You want to talk briefly? Maybe you don't have to say where you go to church, but like we've had some. I had a hardcore Catholic on. I've had a Reformed Catholic. I've had an agnostic. So where do you fall in that spiritual range?
I mean, I just say I'm a Christ follower. I don't really think I'm any denomination. I don't really know about all the denominations, but my family's just always growing up, follow the Bible for what it is, and take it for what it is, and just be a Christ follower. Just following his steps, I guess. So,
Okay, so you a member of a local youth group or anything, or?
I did. What was it? Awana or Cubbies?
I'm not sure what that is.
No, I did.
I was kicked out of Cub Scouts, so I'm not the guy to ask. So
No, it was something when you were in I don't know, maybe elementary school. Then I did Young Life, if you know.
Oh, yeah, I know
yeah,
Young Life,
I did
yeah.
that for about few years in high school, first few years. Then I did what was this thing? I wasn't an athlete, but I did this thing, Fellowship for Christian Athletes, FCA.
Yeah, FCA.
Yeah, so I did that. Few teachers led that, and now I'm in this youth group at a local church, Longhollow.
Yeah.
So I like it. Yeah.
Okay. Well, one thing I was curious about now, just real quickly for the people listening, you're pretty fresh from Chicago. This is like you haven't been down south getting baptized into this southern way. You got here in July?
Yeah, around July 16th, 18th. So been here for a few months.
You like it? Okay.
I do. The weather's nice. I'm hoping for a lot warmer, not as harsh as winters as Chicago, but I like it.
All right. Well, a couple things. I'm just going to ask you a few things, just ask you to kind of react to it. One of the things that I found when I was doing the research for this was they had like 1/3 of people in Gen Z, your group, never attend church, 1/3 sporadically, and 1/3 regularly. So why do you think people of your generation, that's lower than any other generation that I was able to research. So what do you think? I mean, from your perspective.
I think a lot of parents probably aren't, I don't know. I think a lot of parents, to begin with, aren't sort of authoritizing that or being authoritative on that.
Right.
They're kind of just being like, oh, you're tired. You don't want to go. All right. Yeah, we'll go next week. Or we'll read a few verses when you wake up, I just think it's been normalized that you don't have to go as often, which is it's terrible.
Well, it also, some of the statistics said less likely to read the Bible. I mean, so obviously, I guess if you're not going to church on some regular basis, it's not like you're sitting at home as a Bible scholar either, right?
Yeah, I mean, people think they have a lot of better other things to occupy their time with other than sitting down, opening up a book, especially a religious book that people don't really want to tend to read. And, I mean, it's sad.
Yeah, it is sad, definitely. Well, another thing that I found was the percentage of people, it's like 52% of what I read have little trust in religion.
Right.
And then there was some, even went further to talk about how many don't trust the pastor. and don't have a lot of trust. Period. Then there was said something like 60% don't have a sense of trust of anybody. And I'm thinking, well, where's that come from? Because I guess when I was younger, the pastor or something was elevated. You assumed they were decent, honorable people. Right. And so I think de facto you trusted them. These statistics show your generation wired totally different. So how do you explain that?
I mean, I tend to trust pastors that have that are real with their audience, that share their testimonies for what it is. I mean, this one pastor, Robbie Gallaty, I mean, the way he talks about his life and the way he's so honest about it and so upfront, when he says things about the Bible, you take it for what it is because you can relate to it. You can relate to how he's lived, and it's shocking that how you can if he can turn his life around from that, then you can turn your life around too.
Yeah.
So
one of the other things that came out with some of the other people we've interviewed, they talk about being authentic, being real. In other words, not just sitting in the pulpit and talking to you, but actually, walking, talking it, opportunities to serve, to go out as far as that goes. And that seems to be really, really important as far as that. So
yeah, not just going to church, but being a part of the church, helping grow the church, because that's the whole message of the Bible is to help grow the gospel. I mean, back home, I mean, it was you basically just went to church every Sunday. I mean, some people just go Easter or Christmas. I don't know what that does.
Yeah.
But, I mean, actually being a part of youth groups and life groups and joining the cause, I think that's what it's all about.
Yeah. Well, good. That's fantastic. Well, how do you reach out? I mean, just from your perspective, because I get a lot of people in my age group. So how do people reach out to you? What's the best way to draw these people in?
Probably social media,
Really?
Instagram. I don't know. I watch a lot of Instagram videos or reels. I just go through them and I'll hit a bunch of Billy Graham videos and yeah, I think that's one. I think that's probably the most crucial way because that's where your audience is half the time. So around social media.
It's funny you should mention it. One of the things that popped out was that Instagram. I don't use Instagram. Well, I do now, but I didn't use Instagram for pretty much my whole life. Was how many people in your generation, that's the one platform they go back to daily, over and over and over.
Yeah.
And I didn't realize that, so I thought that was pretty good. Something else and not to be too negative, but we kind of talked before we went on the air about how do you reconcile your generation when people talk about the LGBTQI and then all the other things that go with it? So how do you handle that as a young Christian?
For one thing, it's churches are normalizing it, which I don't really know how that makes any sense. But
now, when you say normalizing,
just putting
explain.
flags out like all are welcome, all are welcome,
right?
But I mean, why are you going to church? Are you going to church to learn how you can better your life,
right?
Or are you going to church to just be accepted for who you are and hopefully that'll get you into heaven? But I mean, that's just not the case. I mean, if it directly says in the Bible to repent from your ways of sin and turn to God, then yeah, all are welcome, but they should be teaching them how to live their lives, not in that way. So, I mean...
But is that hard? Because I tried to think, because obviously I've taught with your generation for a long time, but I've noticed a lot of really sincere people, when that subject comes up, it's kind of hard to really just articulate what you just articulated.
Yeah, it is hard because, I mean, people are afraid of being canceled. That's why there's a lot of backlash about on Christians.
Right.
I mean, people think that Christians are... that they can say anything because of their beliefs if they match up. I mean, I don't know. It's just it's hard to say that you're a Christian because then they'll be like, oh, well, what do you think about this or that?
Yeah.
And then they'll hate you for it. I'm like, okay, well, society's only taught you that that's the right way to go about it. So.
Right. So when you said cancel, what does that mean? To be canceled, does that mean just ostracized? I guess I'm thinking of my generation.
From community.
Cancel sounded pretty
hard to get a
permanent,
job.
so I didn't know if that was a slang term for something.
Basically what's the word? Excommunicated from like
Seriously?
society. Yeah.
So in your age group, you think so? If you have a view that's not considered the
Oh,
popular or accepted view,
if you don't support the LGBTQ, I mean, yeah, good luck getting a job. You
Yeah.
know, because then they're gonna be like, oh, that person's working for you, but they hate gays. No, they don't hate gays.
Right.
They just don't support it because
Right.
that's their religion.
right? So as
It
far
gets
as that
confusing,
goes,
yeah.
well, that's interesting. I like that. Well, something else I wanted to touch on that's come up with everybody so far that's kind of blown me away is the anxiety, depression, suicide. I mean, it talked about the number of people, you either know somebody that's planned it or maybe attempted it, and then the number of people that suffer from, anxiety and depression, et cetera. So just like your reaction to that, I mean, is that real? Is that true? Or
I think it is real, and I think that people don't know the right outlets to go to. I
Right.
mean, many will turn to drugs and alcohol or like weed and just partying every Friday and Saturday night instead of getting into fellowship and talking about it.
right.
I mean, just burying it deep inside and going out every night drunk to try and forget about it ain't the way to go about it.
But why your generation? Why do you think the suicide rate is so high? Why do you think that the depression, et cetera?
That's a real it's a tough question. It could be. Let me think.
Yeah, but I mean, I'm just telling you what little I've been
Right.
around you. You seem pretty uplifted, optimistic. I don't sense
I think-
depression in you.
I think people look
but
at
I
their
don't
lives.
know you real well.
I think people look at their lives, and I think social media has a big is a big contributor to that. A lot of people comparing their lives to everything. This person went on vacation. This person has more than me. This person's prettier or better looking than me.
Right.
And I mean, just with one tap of your phone, your day can go from great to like terrible by just like looking at just by comparing your lives to other people,
Right.
and that can just depress you, man.
Well, something interesting. This just popped into my head was since I'm a male too, but as a young man trying to date in this kind of present environment,
Yeah.
not just date as a Christian, but just date as a young man. Sometimes I hear stories in class when people share, and it's kind of, I don't think I'd really want to be a part of your generation trying to date.
No, there's not a lot of trust. Social media is like it's a thief of joy, you know.
A thief of joy.
Comparison is the thief of joy.
Uh-huh.
And that's what's, I mean, yeah, it's just been so normalized, the culture of the hookup culture, you know?
Well, they also, one of the other things that popped out was I was looking at, they were talking about how many people that don't think life's going to get better. In other words, what I'm living in right now, I'm depressed about, et cetera, but I also am optimistic that it's going to get better.
Yeah, it's hard to be optimistic when you're in that place, but you got to look for healthy outlets. You got to talk about it, you know? Therapy, life groups, being a part of a life group. And one thing that's crucial is being part of the right friend group, you know?
Part of a what?
The right friend group.
Oh,
like having
okay.
the right friends around you.
Sure.
Because that's how, I mean, if you're around people that want to just get drunk every Friday night, that's probably what you're going to be doing.
Right.
But if you're around people that are all about communication and talking about your feelings, that's probably how you're going to get out of
You
that.
know, that's another thing. I was looking at dating kind of, you know, and I'm not talking about the apps and all that kind of stuff. And they were talking about how many people prefer to meet somebody out of a friend group.
Yeah.
In other words, I get to know you as a friend first, and then I feel more comfortable with
Yeah,
taking
'cause
the
you're more
next
comfortable.
step,
I
as
agree with
opposed
that.
to what you just described a minute ago. It's like one and done on a date, one
Right.
click, and you're out.
Right. No, I agree with that. Trying
Yeah.
to get to know them before you start dating them, become friends with them, know their values and their morals, you know? I think that's key.
Well, what do you think? What do you want from a church? When you look at a church from yours, and then I'll tell you what I found when I researched, but I'm just curious.
I want a church that I can go to and they'll just take me for who I am. You know?
Yeah.
An honest church, not big on production, That's not like a stage lit
And
concert.
what do you mean by production? Like,
I just don't like mega churches
Right.
that try and reel people in by
Mm-hmm.
like a laser light production.
oh, I know what you. Okay, so more of a
More of a
worldly
a humble
entertainment
church,
or
yeah.
something to drag, not to drag people in, but to draw
Yeah.
people in, et cetera, as opposed to the other. Yeah.
Yeah, they just take you for who you are, and they just work with you from there.
Yeah. Well, it's funny. So I looked at some of these surveys
Mm-hmm.
from your generation about what they want from church. They want community.
Yeah.
And you had used that earlier. They want security, and compassion and connection. And then they wrapped it all up and said a safe place to ask questions and express doubts without judgment. And I
Yeah.
thought, wow.
That's actually what our student pastor or preacher, I don't know. He did a sermon on it, and it was on deconstructing your faith, asking questions. Because if you just go to church and you're just taking it for what it is, you're just listening, you're not really diving into what you believe in.
Right.
Like, why do you believe in that?
Right.
Like, why do you believe that Jesus is the way into heaven? You gotta, I think if more people were to deconstruct their faith and ask questions, and churches allowed that to happen, and didn't criticize them for that, I think a lot of faiths would be stronger.
Yeah, and there is a theme through all this, authentic, real, trusting, able to ask questions, able to share comments without judgment. That seems to be kind of the theme through all this. Well, there was a couple other things too. They were talking about how do you reach out to your generation if you want to pull you in? And these were some of the things they put: authentic, build relationships. We've already talked about that. Shared responsibilities.
Yeah.
I'm not just sitting here, I'm on the mission trip. I'm doing
Right.
things. We're part of it. Let's see. Use technology. You'd already, and don't expect them to come to you.
No, because they won't.
So talk to me about that. I just thought that was
I
interesting.
mean, you want to come to them, but you also don't want to force it down their throats.
Right.
Because then it's kind of hard to believe in something that they're trying to force down your throat. I mean, be fun with it, invite them to like fun activities that necessarily don't have to be related to Christ, just like a kickoff, like a summer kickoff, like join us at like here or there,
Right.
But I hate that. I dislike that when Christians try to force the youth how to force their ideas down their throat.
Right.
I mean, they're not going to really learn from that, you know?
Well, that's interesting.
You present them with it in a nice and humble way,
Okay.
and then you ask I feel like asking how they would want to be presented
Sure.
would be the best way to go about it.
Well, here's a couple other things, and then we'll move on to some different stuff. Talking about, the number, they call them nuns, N-O-N-E-S, people that don't necessarily believe in God the way it's been defined traditionally, et cetera. Instead of, number one reason they say they don't go to church is they'd rather practice whatever faith they have in different ways, like maybe go to the woods, more of a
Right.
naturalist as far as that. Do you sense that there's a lot of people that just don't identify with the traditional religion, spiritual path at all in your generation?
Yeah, of course I do.
Because this is like the largest group based on what I could find.
Of course. I mean, I don't know if this is directly related to it, but I think that some people that were baptized as a child tend not to care about it or have a relationship with Jesus or God more as people that are getting baptized later in life because
Sure.
they already think they're saved and that they can just do whatever they want because they got baptized as a child. I don't know. I don't know what the sense is in that, but I think there's a disconnect that people think that they don't have to go to church.
Right.
And they can just like sit out on a picnic bench and read the Bible, which is awesome,
Yeah.
But I think without the church aspect, there's no real community there.
Right.
So I think that's a big problem.
Yeah, and that always popped up in there, the idea of community. All right, one more church or spiritual question is, heaven and hell is something I find very fascinating because we were talking earlier about, do pastors still preach the hellfire and brimstone,
Right.
turn or burn, type of thing. So what's your opinion on that? Do you think it's taught enough, too much, or
or
do you even believe in heaven and hell?
No, I definitely believe in it. And I think it's taught too little because one thing about people is I don't think many people want to feel convicted about the way they're living because then that puts a different conscience on their mind. They're like, should I do this or should I do that? And when they hear about it, I think a lot of people would tend to move away from that church.
Right.
You know, a lot of these pastors cushion their lives with just they won't go near that topic ever,
Right.
because they want to keep the people in their church. You know, they want to keep that revenue coming.
So you're afraid the doors are going to swing open and it's going to be an exodus, right?
Yeah, I do.
Right. Well, what about as far as, and this just popped in my head. What's your image or vision you think of heaven?
You know, like it talks about in Revelations, I think a lot of it's metaphorical, so it's hard. It's probably one of the most difficult books to understand.
Sure.
But just a lot of everlasting worship, you know, praising, no stress, there's no depression, you know. You're just up there praising with God with a bunch of, with a real strong community. And I think a lot of people that, something to add to that is the verse, what is it? John 3:16. Whoever believes, what is it again?
Take your time. We're not in a hurry.
For whoever believes in him shall never perish but have everlasting life.
Right.
And yeah, that's true. But if you're living your life in and out of the Christian life, there's a verse, I don't know, I'm going to paraphrase here.
Sure.
It says, Jesus will spit you out of his mouth if you're lukewarm. He'd rather have you not in it at all than be lukewarm about it, you know?
Okay.
So I think that's something to live by.
Okay.
Not just believing that, because it is crucial that you believe that Jesus died for your sins, because that's what it says, but also to live in the life.
Okay.
You know?
Well, that's awesome. Hey, a couple of things I wanted to ask. When you start looking at just yourself, like I was looking at some things in here that would pop up, said your generation is really strong into social justice. You know.
Yeah.
Oh, well, go ahead. I can tell we got a reaction.
Everyone wants to be a part of a cause.
Okay.
And, if you're not, then what are you doing with your life? I feel like that's basically how it's going.
So if you're not marching for a cause,
yeah,
you're not
if you're
part
not
of
marching
the...
for women's rights or LGBTQ, then get out of here. You know, like it's just crazy. But yeah.
So it's tough. So you got to pick a cause, huh?
Yeah, pick a cause or else.
So do you have a cause?
No.
Okay, so you don't have one.
I mean,
your cause is rejecting mandatory causes. Huh?
yeah, basically.
I like
Exactly.
that. That's pretty good.
Mm-hmm.
A couple other things too is I know we're moving away from the church, but like as far as government, I read that your generation doesn't have the same negativity toward government as maybe your parents or your grandparents. In other words, I'm not saying government's perfect, but can government be part of the solution to some of the big problems we're facing, or are they not? Because my generation, I get a steady diet of how horrible they are. They can't solve anything. They've done nothing but heap, misery on us, et cetera. And then it goes into the political realm if you're conservative or if you're not. So,
well, I mean, I'm conservative, to be honest.
Okay.
And I think a lot of our government right now is corrupt.
okay.
And what was that thing you said about this generation's government again?
Yeah, in other words, do you view government as can they be part of the solution?
Yeah, they absolutely can.
Right.
I mean, when they overturned Roe versus Wade,
Right.
I mean, there were riots in the street about that, like how government is telling us to control our bodies. Like, just it's the state, but yeah, I think they absolutely can be a contributor to the solution, but I don't think they are right now.
Right.
You know,
And
I think a lot of them are godless.
Okay. And another thing I thought was well, wait a minute. Let me back up a quick. Godless. Right. So you believe a lot of the people that are in Washington don't have a moral compass or a spiritual compass, at least from what you can see.
Well, when you let children decide their own gender when they believe in Santa Claus,
Right.
I don't see the sense in that. I don't know how a 6-year-old who believes in Santa Claus can know what gender they want to be.
That's a good point. I know that's very controversial, and I haven't delved into it enough.
And I think they're doing that for this generation to keep voting them into power.
Wow.
And I don't know. I just don't agree with any of that.
Okay. Well, this is your year up to vote, isn't it?
Yeah, I got to register.
Are you excited, or do you feel like it's a responsibility you should do?
I think I do think it's a responsibility in Illinois. I mean, in some states that are always just going to stay one side.
Right.
I mean, you can vote. It's probably not going to change anything, but I think it's everyone's obligation to vote.
Okay. So you're looking forward to it.
Yeah, I'm looking forward to it.
Okay. So do you consider yourself optimistic about the future? Do you think your generation's up to the task? Because, I mean, we're putting a lot on your plate because, we're in economics. We
Right.
talk about the debt. We talk about this. But at the same time, I don't know how you view your future economically. Are you, like kind of what is the dream? What is the plan? Do you feel good about it?
I'm iffy on that.
Okay.
I mean, in this economic state, I think it's really hard for our generation,
Right.
just due to inflation, to make it, or the American dream, or whatever it is. I mean, if you look at the cost of buying a house in like 1960, and now,
Yep.
it's a drastic change.
Yeah, I'd be lying to you, tell you the idea of buying a house is really starting to move away from you. So, which is sad because that is
There's a lot of companies
that is
buying
the
them
ultimate
already
dream.
because
A lot of what?
there's a lot of companies buying them up already, and then the
It's
only things to be able
investments.
is to rent them.
Yeah, absolutely, which is taking them off the market.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Well, just a last thing before we close, but I guess I'm trying to get a sense of how do you feel? I mean, it's called New South Christian. So all these people have moved into the area.
Mm-hmm.
We talk about in class, there's 100 people come in here a day.
Yeah, it's
They're
crazy.
different than what was here that they found. Not bad, doesn't mean that. But it's just being redefined in a different way. So if you've come to stay in the South, you think?
I do. I like
Okay.
the morals and values that are here.
Okay.
And they stick by them. They're not they don't shy away from them. And
Okay.
I like Southern hospitality is real down here.
Sure.
Not everyone's entitled. And I think a lot of people are down here have been built up and grown up with strong morals and strong values.
Okay, good. You like the idea of owning guns?
I'm thinking about it. I mean, there's a lot of people. There's a lot of crazy people out in this world this day and age. So, more than likely, yeah.
I
probably
talked to people I know that moved in the area from California, and one of the things I just love the fact I'm going to be able to buy some guns and I can be safe now. And where I live, there'll be weekends I'm thinking, my gosh, are they invading?
crazy.
They're shooting in all directions and everything.
Yeah, there's a lot of crazy
Generally,
people.
I find them a lot of fun and everything, but it's amazing the things we take for granted in the South that when people move here,
Right.
they're very, very excited about. So, all right. Well, hey, I'll tell you what. I guess that's it. Any
Mm-hmm.
parting thoughts or shots or?
Just happy to be on here today.
Okay.
Yeah.
Well, we're glad to have you. So this is Dylan Tudor from Chicago,
Yep.
down from the north. A good guy. Doesn't have a southern drawl yet, but give him some time. I think he's going to be able to work it out. Maybe he'll meet a young lady to help him along the way. But I really appreciate him doing the show. So God bless you guys and have a happy day, and we'll see you down the road.